time to explain it to you. How do you walk that line between talking about serious issues that have implications for so many people, but also, making it appealing?
Am I trying to change your stance on things? Absolutely not. You can absolutely love your God and your guns and your Bibles. I'm from the South, baby. I love that too. But you have to understand that button that you press in the ballot box is making your everyday life a little harder.
I want to take that and I want to ask you about the situation and the Democrats' response in Texas. Obviously, you're very good at having authentic and genuine conversations.
Well, I just talk for a living. So I'm a union organizer in Texas, which means I have about 3.5 minutes to get your attention, explain to you that me talking to you is not illegal. You're not going to get shot for speaking with a union organizer, and then convince you to give me a little bit of your money out of your check to like fight for your rights. So you have to be pretty good at it. And two, you got to remember, I am a millennial. So I grew up talking on the phone as a
Yeah.
child. So I've had lots of practice having conversations.
Yeah, yeah. How do you get into labor activism and I guess kind of some of your activism efforts?
You know what? So this started when I was young. But no, seriously, when I was in middle school, I went to this school. It's called James C. Ryan Middle School in Third Ward, and in the heart of Third Ward, I was loved it very much. Had a great time, but we were surrounded, a lower income neighborhood by like these like rundown, kind of abandoned little what they call shotgun houses. And it was just lots of drug activity. Wasn't super safe for the kids that lived and had to walk to school, and so we were complaining about it, and one of our history teachers was just like, "Okay, so what are you going to do about it?" And we were like, "What? No, we're children. What do you mean?" And so he kind of walked us through the process of like, yeah, and we were like really offended, like, "Oh, so we're supposed to fix this problem?" And he was like, "You absolutely can. You have rights too." So long story less long, we ended up going to the city council and basically presenting, to the city council and testifying, saying, look, we live in this neighborhood, we go to school in this neighborhood, and this is unsafe. And, in hindsight, we probably weren't the only catalyst that sparked those homes being demolished, but I think we played a somewhat of a significant role. Not every day you have like 12 and 13-year-olds going to city council and taking advantage of that opportunity. And so I think from there, it was just kind of an eye-opening experience. Like, oh, okay, if I complain loud enough and to the right people, things will happen. And then when my freshman year of college, I had a baby. Parents were not super happy with that at all. I come from a very, very hoity-toity, bougie black family. Black excellence is a thing, and having
Mhm.
babies is not at 19 is not a part of that in some ways. And the world just got very real for me. I went from having American Express, I was on food stamps in the span of 2 weeks. And it was just like, okay, this is what the world is. And I saw how easy it is to, once you lose your safety net, to remain there. And so I knew that I was going to be fine. I was going to graduate from college. I would get a good job and I'll eventually, get myself together. But there were a lot of people in those neighborhoods that I lived in East Austin that just weren't going to have access to the same opportunities. And it wasn't because I was so special and the exception, but it was just that that's just how life was. And I just didn't think that was good enough. So when I came back home, I wanted to do community organizing. Not really easy to build a career in community organizing, but I found something very similar, which was labor organizing. And kind of what I figured is you live in a society where everything costs money. Your healthcare is tied to your job, where you send your kids, where you live is all tied to your source of income. Maybe I can help working suck a little less if people more and more empowered about their rights. And so I found a great opportunity with the State Employees Union, which I'm now a member of as a state legislator. And I spent almost 5 years with the teachers union and just loved it. I could, you know, wear Jordans and jeans to work. I could cuss a little bit, all the while, helping empower people and, pushing them in the right direction towards developing a political analysis that wouldn't just uplift them in their workplace, but also help them be more engaged in their society. So yeah, it worked out.
So you got into like the activism, I guess, component of it very early on. But it wasn't until you were about 19 and you started, having, I would say, more working class problems that you started to
Mhm.
connect both your activism and, advocacy for working class issues.
Absolutely. And it was just that it was like the time was right for it. Obama had just gotten elected. I'm 19 with the baby. I'm in college. I'm away from home. I'm in Austin, Texas. I'm at the University of Texas at Austin. So, it was just all of those different factors kind of coming together really just thrust me into really just having an awakening of what do I want to see this world look like for my baby, right? I had envisioned, being in a very different position, financially and family wise when I decided to become a mom. But, my husband and I at the time, we were blessed. We had a baby, and it was, going to be incumbent upon us to figure out what do we do in the immediate to make his life better, but also how do we make this world better? And so that's just kind of what fueled me. And I'm not gonna lie, like I think I'm one of those people, I was just born to be an organizer. I've always, colored outside the lines a little bit. I've always pushed back. I've always just had a fierce sense of justice and if something wasn't right, I always had to raise my hand and say something about it. I was always kind of called, a know-it-all, always had talks too much on my, disciplinary reports at school. And I think that's why I'm here now. And I think looking back, I don't know how I would have done anything else. And it feels like in a lot of ways I fell into this, but I think I was absolutely just destined to be where I am.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel to a certain respect, like I'm in a similar boat. I mean, obviously I speak into a microphone now for a living, so I had to have been a talkative kid at some point. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to see you take, that decision of activism and organizing. I guess I don't want to say outside the system, but like, not doing the traditional political route. What inclined you to like make that jump and actually run for office? Because I know, a lot of the critiques are like getting into office, you might become the term that I use is reified, right? Like you fall into the systems as opposed to like actually combating them. Do you feel like you can make effective change from the inside, being a part of the game?
So I kind of look at it two ways, and I'm still very much an organizer. And I think part of what I've told myself from the beginning, this process is going to change you a little bit, for better and for worse. But I have to not become so cynical that I'm ineffective. And so, like the running joke, I was a political director on the campaign. So our current city controller, I was his political director, and I used to joke, my job is the regular person on staff. Like I'm the person in the room being like, hey, look, this is what normal people think about, A, B, C, or D. And I would always kind of tease them, like, y'all know I'm never gonna see y'all again after this, right? Like I'm going back to a normal world with normal people. I'm getting out of these suits and stuff. Cause that's just, not my thing. And I would always say, I would never run for office. Now, people that know me don't think that this is strange at all because when you're an organizer, you kind of are that person. I don't want to say a buzzkill because I'm the funnest girl in the room. I want to be clear about that. But I'm always that person that's reminding you, like, hey, there's a special school board election, Tuesday, blah, blah, blah. I'm that person. And so people automatically say, well, you care about this stuff. Why wouldn't you want to do it? But because I care about this stuff is the main reason why I didn't want to do it. I just figured, oh, no, there's no way for you to make change from inside the institution. You have to just burn everything to the ground. I think getting older, and in a way, I don't want to say you age out of organizing, but you change and develop, and you realize, however you feel about these systems, they exist, right? Because we're taxpayers, and what the government is essentially supposed to do with our tax dollars is allocate those resources. The problem that we encounter and that we run into is that we have elected officials and leaders who really don't advocate for us and then sometimes aren't incentivized to. And so those resources are not making it to the communities who are in most desperate need. And so I had a situation where I was living in the State House District, 146, the one I'm in that I represent now. And I just was not super thrilled with the representation that I had. And then I think really kind of what kicked it off from there, I had a video that went viral because our school district had been taken over. And I didn't go to that meeting with the intention of like chewing. Well, I didn't, well, I didn't go with the intention of chewing out the superintendent, but I wasn't happy that video caught on, and it wasn't because I think I was looking for a moment as much as that people were just resonating with it because we were just fed up. We're just tired. Like a school district in Houston, a video at a meeting garnered millions of views from across the country and across the world because people were like, I'm tired and I want to see people standing up. And that kind of weighed, on me thinking about, okay, what do I do next? But I still had not decided to run. But I had I primaried an incumbent who just, took some really bad stances, voting against trans kids, just not standing up for some of our most vulnerable members of our community in a lot of ways just lets me know other decisions you're willing to make. Like if you'll pick on trans kids when it's no incentive to and no reason to, and you shouldn't for any reason, but to know that you're just willing to do it because it was going to get you some headlines lets me know that you'll neglect and throw anybody under the bus. And so coming from very outside the establishment, I think that's what I don't want to say made my race was not easy, but what gave people so much hope because I think there was just a lot of fear around primarying somebody who was already in office. So
Mm.
much so where people were very unhappy, and a lot of people that were more on the inside would complain and say, I would love to primary her, but blah, 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 and didn't do so because it's hard to take on an incumbent. And I did it. And it wasn't easy, but it just showed that yeah, people are ready for change. People want people that are gonna fight for them. And if you're willing to stand up and build and do the work, people will join you. And so, we ran a hell of a campaign, but it wasn't something I just woke up and thought about doing on a very snap judgment. It was really hard to get to this point.
No, I can imagine. And this is a very, I feel like, so I want to apologize first because this is a very Gen Z thing for me to do. But I can't help but draw parallels to this, to what you're telling me, this story that you're telling me, and what just happened in New York City with the Democratic mayor. There's Zohran Mamdani, or the primary for Democratic mayor, or for mayor in New York, and his authenticity. Because I feel like that's kind of what you were talking about in that video. It wasn't that you were looking for a viral moment or trying to get attention. You were just speaking what people felt. And I feel like right now we're in a political space where so many people just want to listen to the people that they trusted with their vote say the things that they're actually feeling, and not some talking point or something that, like you're saying, is going to give them a headline. They're not looking for a viral moment. They're looking for someone to actually say the things that everyone, I feel like, is feeling right now.
Yeah, I mean, you see it every day, and I think, and I'm gonna, because I have a friend that teases me about, okay, we get it, you're an organizer. Yeah, I get it. You get it. I'm an organizer, but it informs my opinion because he's an elected official, he's a lawyer, so they have their own way that they show up to the work. But what I often mention is that when we are talking about like policy and we're talking about getting people to vote for us and side with us, if you talk to people, they already do.
Mm.
What we have to do a better job of on our side as Democrats is connecting those dots. You hear people complain about gas prices, about grocery prices, about how frustrated they are that their kids are basically like on their phones all day and functionally illiterate, that pothole in the street that they drive over every day. Those are all policy concerns, right? Even though if they don't, it doesn't feel like it. And so we have to be able to make the case and say, hey, look, I hear what you're saying. I know you're frustrated. This is the pathway to fixing that. And so, again, I say that as a person who is very much, coming outside of the establishment, very much dealing with working people. I still have a job. I still have a real job because as a state legislator in Texas, I make a part-time salary, but I think it really helps shape the way that I enter this work. And I think it keeps me really grounded, especially with us being, it's 62 Democrats, 88 Republicans. It's a hard fight every single day, but I get to leave that building saying, yeah, we got our shit rocked today, but guess what? Well, I'm sorry, I didn't cussing on your podcast.
You can
We got
cuss. You're not worried. Don't
okay.
apologize at
We
all.
got we got our shit rocked today, but it was worth going in and showing up for the people who need it the most. And so, yeah, I think very much like you saw in New York, and I think we're going to continue to see authenticity win out. And it's
Mm.
not going to be the person who is the biggest policy wonk in the room. It's going to be the person that can take those policy wonk ideas and make people, everyday people who have about this much time to hear you out, say, you know what? I'm gonna stick with this person. I'm gonna get behind this person because they hear me and they understand my values.
Yeah, I want to kind of bounce off of that. And, you mentioned it a little bit earlier with, like, we're dealing with very serious issues, right? There's a lot of things going on that are very problematic, and they have been for a lot of times. And I feel like, as progressive voices, sometimes a lot of people will look at the issues that we're pointing and kind of feel the buzzkill energy that you're mentioning. How do you walk that line? Because I feel, again, you're someone that does it well, where it's like, this is a problem. We're going to talk about this problem, and you're going to listen to me talk about it. But I'm not going to, I guess, I think moral grandstanding is the thing that I get back to a lot with some of the Democratic Party, where it's like, you're a bad person if you don't agree with me, or, this issue is very complicated and you're not understanding it, so I'm not even going to take the time to explain it to you. How do you walk that line between talking about serious issues that have implications for so many people, but also, making it appealing?
I think for me, and I do have that part of me that can kind of be like a little bit of a scold, but where I walk back from that is I remember a time where I didn't know everything. There was a time where, I wasn't woke as I was right now. There was a time where I did not understand the broader implications of the decisions that I made on an everyday basis, some of the things that I would say, offhandedly or haphazardly. And so being able to remember a time where before Lauren is the Lauren as she is now, it makes it easier to approach that work. And then also too, as an organizer, a labor organizer in Texas, especially depending on the industry that I'm working with at the time, all those people may not agree with me ideologically. Like I've organized, retail workers in very rural areas outside of Texas who were like super Trumpers. And I would have to have the very, interesting conversation of like, look, you can believe all you want to believe. And I'm gonna tell you something. The reason you can't take a day off of work because your husband's in the hospital is because of the policies in the people that you support in office. Am I trying to change your stance on things? Absolutely not. You can absolutely love your God and your guns and your Bibles. I'm from the South, baby. I love that too. But you have to understand that button that you press in the ballot box is making your everyday life a little harder. And, after doing that so often, it really does get a lot easier to see that first off, first and foremost, nobody wants to be made to feel like a bad person. And yeah, there are sometimes people have some shady opinions and even some very big. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. You trust me. We live on the internet. We see the things that people tweet. Have some really and have some really bigoted views. And I
Yeah.
have to understand that everybody is not blessed to have the same level of exposure that I have. Everybody
Mm.
is not blessed to have the same level of intellect that I have. And it's not my job to wag my finger at them because if I'm trying to help build a movement, if we're trying to broaden this tent, the people that we're turning away and scolding, eventually we're going to need them to grow. And we have to be louder than the other side. And also, too, this is just a little bit, go back to, being a regular person. I always tell people nobody wants to sit at the loser table.
Mm.
Everybody wants to be fun. Everybody wants to be a hot girl. Everybody wants to be a cool kid. And if your club, unfortunately, doesn't look as fun as the other side, people not gonna come to your party, boo. And that's just the way it is. And so, again, we have the right policies. I think the things that we believe are right. I don't think we need to shift socially. I think that what we stand up for, the people that we defend and protect, are absolutely what we should be doing as Democrats. But we also have to make people feel brought into that circle. And that's the one thing, I don't like to give MAGA a lot of props for anything, but what they did do was make people feel like they were a part of something. You get a red cap, you're welcome in, not a whole lot of, entry level questions, and you're a part of a movement. And these are people you got to think that kind of used to
Yeah.
just you probably be the I want to say outcast, but be the person that not a lot of people wanted to talk to or hear what they were dishing out. And now they got a community for whatever it's worth and good or bad, whether we like it or not. Because I really don't. I hate it actually, but I watch that, and as an organizer, I'm like, yeah. We got to do something similar. Now, we don't need to try to be a, knockoff version of that. We need to be authentic. We need to continue to stick to our values and talk about the things that matter. But we definitely have to understand how we broaden our tent and make our table a little bit cooler so kids will want to come sit at it.
Yeah, no, I think that analysis is like exactly spot on. Obviously with the whole situation going on in Texas and Governor Gavin Newsom's response, a lot of these pictures have been coming out. I don't know if you've seen them comparing Gavin Newsom to JD Vance. And one of these pictures was like Gavin Newsom looking straight out of American Psycho, you know, with the newspaper and everything, the scarf on, and it was JD Vance in like a bathroom stall, looking like, you know, no disrespect to JD Vance or anyone that is sitting at the losers table, but he definitely wasn't at the popular kids table during that time. So it is interesting to see how like now they're starting to feel that popularity. Same thing with Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is one of those people that like, you know, in high school where he was sitting.
Yeah.
And now
Y-
that he has this
He like got stuffed in
following.
lockers every day. And that's kind of how I feel too. I was like, y'all, I'm not gonna keep losing elections to people who like got stuff in the locker every day. Like, I'm just not. Like, just for my own ego. Like, aside from them, some of them just being like just cartoon villains, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm just like, you're a loser. I don't know. And what? How is this happening? Like, why are we listening to Stephen Miller about anything? Like, it's
No,
weird. It's
no, it is. And the cartoon villain, I'm so glad that you said that too, because I've been saying the exact same thing. The one that always sticks out in mind when it's too Tulsi Gabbard with that white strand of hair. That's just like some comic book villain
it
shit.
is comic book villain. Like, there is a villain, I want to say, I can't remember, from Captain Planet. And she has like the little bob and like the white streak, and she's like really mean. And when I tell people, I was like, y'all, when I say cartoonishly evil, I don't mean like these people are like funny, because the stuff they're doing is terrible. What I mean is that if you read this character in a book, you would be like, this is unrealistic, because they have no redeeming qualities. Like, a person can't be this bad. And then I show you Stephen Miller and you read his bio and you're like, oh no, wait, you actually can be this bad. Yes, they're just
Yeah.
awful people.
No, absolutely, absolutely. The other one that sticks out, two more now that came to mind, was the like 22-year-old that they hired to do counterterrorism. He had like his eyebrow,
Yeah,
like he looked like a character. He looked like the villain in Lazy Town. This is always the one
it's
that I drew.
the
You know, the eyebrow up. It made me. I just could not believe it. And the other one is Donald Trump's portrait, his White House portrait. Where like you're gonna look at that in 40 years, and you know, don't judge a
and
book
be
by
like,
its
what were
cover,
we
but
doing?
like.
Well, because so I love dystopian lit. Like, I love, like, when I was young, I love like Animal Farm and The
Sure.
Giver and all this stuff. And I think what I found most fascinating about it is that we would never be this ridiculous as a society again. Like, that's what I would always tell myself.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a Black woman, so I grew up hearing about, my parents going to segregated schools, my grandparents having to do like literacy tests and things like that to vote. And you just think, okay, we have gotten to a point where this would never happen. I would even joke about like how they're like when Lex Luthor became president in Superman, right? And I was like, these comics have just gone completely off the rail. This is just nonsense. Like, how would they ever elect Lex Luthor as super? And I just had to shut up. Like, I remember I had to just shut up and say, oh no, we're worse than that. Like, we don't even have like really smart villains. Like,
No.
these are just like kind of some of the worst. Like, I think I would be less insulted if we actually had a Lex Luthor for president.
Yeah.
Like, if
I say
we,
the same
because
thing.
I would be like, well, I understand how we got tricked. I don't know how people were getting tricked by Donald Trump. Like, I just don't know how it happened. Like,
It's wild.
I get it, but also sometimes I'm like, kind of, I don't get it though. I don't
No,
get it.
yeah, I reread 1984 a couple months ago, and I was just reading and I was like, "Oh my God, we're in a worse than 1984 situation." Obviously,
Oh,
like
this is
apart
much
from
worse.
it's way worse. But also like the parallel, the double think, new speak, you know, woke is just new, like it's new speak. It's these are just terms that like they would have been in the book. It's wild. And to your point, they're just, and this pisses me off. We talk about this in the office all the time. They're bad at fascism. Like, you know what I'm saying?
They're
I don't
not,
want them to
it's
be
not
good
good.
at
They're
it.
not good at it. I don't,
No.
I was like, this is the dumbest timeline. And I just thought, and I was like, I thought when, our oligarch overlords took over and we were living in some Walmart-esque bubble town where I had to use like Amazon bucks to get my water and stuff like that, that it would just be smarter. It would
Yeah.
just be done better. And I just feel like this just lacks efficiency. It's disappointing. My
Yeah.
best friend is a history professor, and we kind of just, make these jokes all the time. Like, I could expect maybe that things would take a turn and we'd end up in the bad place and on the bad timeline. I just thought it'd be more interesting than this. This is just disappointing that this is how it's gonna go. And I think I really, when COVID happened and we were having, conversations about horse paste and, injecting bleach, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I know why the aliens have not made contact with us, because they just pass by Earth and they're locking their doors and they're not looking and they're just like, if we don't say anything to them, they won't say anything to us. We're literally just like the universe's meth lab in a way, I think.
Either
It's
that
just
or they're watching it like a sitcom. Like this is the
it's
Earth is there.
popcorn.
It's always sunny in
Yeah.
Philadelphia. That's the
It's
parallel for them.
we're the Simpsons for them. It's
That's
sad.
absolutely. No, it is wild to see how bad they are at doing a authoritarian fascist takeover. I feel like almost so, obviously I don't want to be too hopeful here, but almost so to the point where like they're going to mess it up. Like they're going too fast, too mask off, too quickly. Like to your point, another big thing that like fascist governments do is like they give concessions. Like they'll give the people a treat so that they don't
Yeah.
like,
Breads and
rebel.
circuses.
Yeah,
You
but
you
it's
need
like
yeah, it's they're not that's what I'm saying, they're not good at it. They because
no.
they're not reading the playbook, they're skimming through it and they skip to the end where they have all the power. And it's like, no, before that happens, there's like little you still gotta give us a little piece of candy. Again, you still have to give us a little bread and circus, a little distraction, and you're taking everything away all at once. Like I just saw now because of the tariffs, like PlayStations are gonna go up
Yeah.
$50. And I was like, and see, that's your base right there. Like those podcast bros are not gonna love that. I don't think the Rogan fans are going to enjoy having to pay more for their gaming systems. You might want to slow down a little bit, but
The one that pissed
I'm
me off,
hoping that it works against them.
I think it will. The one that made me upset was Arizona iced tea, where it's like they've been 99 cents for how long now, and they're going to
Yep.
increase the price of Arizona iced tea because of the aluminum tariffs.
Yeah. Look, I'm saying we're messing. Y'all are. They're messing up some good things. They're messing up some good things. And again, I hope it's to our benefit. I hope people get a taste of this and they absolutely hate it. Because I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's, and all jokes aside and seriously, I hate how painful it's going to be for us for a while until we climb out of it, because I always tell people, you know I was born in the 80s and I am suffering right now as a millennial from decisions that were made from a presidency that I couldn't even vote in. Like when we talk about Reagan and Reaganomics, like a lot of things from our education system to how many homeless people are on the streets, even just the whittling away at like labor rights, for example, happened under his administration. And so I really kind of hate it for my kids and my future grandchildren, should I be blessed to have some of these things that are happening right now under Trump's presidency, especially around like just the research and the innovation aspects. It's gonna suck for a little while, because we have really taken a step back. And this is what I guess really confuses me about so I don't like I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but I was like,
Go for
y'all,
it.
it
Go for
feels
it.
like it feels like we didn't realize that Russia was still in the Cold War. And
Mm,
it's like they're winning because they're tricking us to being sick
mm,
and unhealthy and stupid, right? Like in kind of in a way. So like we're
yeah.
not believing in science anymore. We're doing just massive rollbacks in just every way. We don't want to be a global leader. We're killing our soft power. Like USAID, what was that? Like
Yeah.
that was, and like I said again, not to sound like some just imperialistic like war hawk, because that is not my thing. I'm not a
Yeah.
foreign policy expert, but I'm just like, you would think the things that made people want to be allies with us, that we were kind of good at doing, we would keep doing those things. So if something happens, we'll have friends.
Yeah.
I mean, I just, it's just strange.
Yeah.
Like
No,
it's very strange.
I'm in the same boat. I'm in the same boat because I'm not a war hawk. I'm not an imperialist. But like, Voice of America, was important for, if you're one of those people that wants to put America first and you want to make sure that we're that person on the global stage, like Voice of America was one of
Yes.
those institutions that made sure that that happened. It's funny, you were talking about Russia. I always go with China because like China's just having like a cakewalk right now. We're talking about how we need to outbeat China. We're shooting ourselves in the foot, and China's not
We're
even
not.
trying to
We're
do
not.
anything. They're just like being
We're like,
friendly with their neighbors.
they're just being better allies to their neighbors than we are right now. Like we're
Yeah.
insulting people that we would like if some conflict broke out or something. I was like, remember how mad we were at France some years ago, the whole freedom fries like debacle? We're not gonna have anybody that's willing to jump down with us because we have treated everybody horribly and we're proud of it. Like I think that's the other part.
Yeah.
Like this whole thing about like Canada. I was like, y'all, Canada is like our bestie. What are we doing?
Yeah.
Mexico, like, are you insane? And so that's what I'm saying. I was like, this has to be. a coup from the inside. Like this has to be intentional because if it is just I was like, this just can't be malfeasance for malfeasance sake in the words of Dwight Schrute. There has to be something more nefarious happening because to just watch just decades of just goodwill be thrown away for no reason is gonna
Yeah.
be really crazy. Like there has to be some secret like Manchurian candidate like plot to this because otherwise it's even more embarrassing. Like it's even more embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah. No, and that's the thing. Like, I think that that would just be giving Donald Trump like too much credit, right? Like, it's just at this point, it just has to be that he's just an idiot and cannot see, 2 feet in front of him. We have this guest come on, a couple of our shows named Simon Anhalt, and he does this thing called the Good Country Index. And he basically measures like how every other country perceives every other country based off of like
Mhm.
trade and some of their environmental stuff and just basically how the tourism, a bunch of different factors. But one thing, we were having a conversation, maybe this was about a year and a half, 2 years back. He was talking to me about how when Donald Trump was in office, the United States standing on the Good Country Index absolutely plummeted. But not only did it plummet, countries like China and Russia's went up and got better because we gave them a vacuum and someone's going to come in and fill that vacuum and it's them. It's
Yes.
just crazy. And again, going back to the thing, it's not like I think that America has always taken the best decisions internationally or that, we haven't been flawed in some capacity. Don't get me wrong, but like if you're one of those people that's like America needs to be the dominant country that controls everyone, this is against your interest. It seems like against Republican interests.
That's what I guess I have a that's what is and I've like tried to talk to my colleagues about this, like my Republican colleagues, and it's just they're just so tunnel vision. I was like, oh baby, y'all are in a cult. Like this is a cult. Because as much as like I love President Obama and as much as I supported President Biden, I was like, baby, I can give you a laundry list of critiques and things that I thought they could have done better within their presidency, but you cannot get them to say one thing. And I'm always confused about I was like, so you laid out a bill that's like anti-China and anti-Russia and blah blah blah. I said, but do you know the president that you love so much is like besties with Putin? Like, is how are we reconciling that? And then they just move on to the next thing. They're just like MAGA. And I'm like, okay, well, all right,
Yeah.
fine, cool, whatever. So I don't even, and I think that's like the other part of it too, is like the people who are really dialed in to this, they are so far gone. I think Trump knows that any decision that he makes is gonna be fine and they can justify it. I think we saw something shift a little bit with the Epstein files
Yeah.
and how that was handled. I'm wondering how long they can kind of move around in a different way to I guess maybe try to distract their supporters because that's the only thing that I've really seen that has kind of like stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe the
No.
tariff fallout would be more significant once people are pockets are hurting a little bit more, but it just seems like it's so hard for anybody to hold them accountable, and that's why so many of these things are happening because I'm like, y'all, we keep talking about like Russia this, Russia that, and China this, China that, but I was like, your guy really likes those guys.
Yeah. And like evidently, like he rolled out the red carpet for Putin. Like
Yeah,
that's flattery. That's a little romantic, if you will, even. Like
it's
that's
kinda it's I was like, he was really happy to see him. Like it was, it was given long distance like relationship. I was like, this is concerning on not just like a national security level, but also like
like someone should call
weird.
Melania. Like someone needs to let
Somebody
Melania
should.
know.
You know what? I'm sure he has a hall pass, for situations like this, but it's just a little disturbing. I was like, no, I don't love it. I don't love it.
Yeah,
I think there's a better way to foster international relations with a country that I thought we were hostile towards, but who knows? I guess things change.
yeah, at this point, it changes every single day, and it goes back to that cult mentality that you were talking about. I saw Charlie Kirk tweet the other day, and I get so I don't spend that much time on Twitter, but when I do, I feel like it's always interacting with Charlie Kirk's tweets. He tweeted the other day, like I didn't. It was like a video of like obviously some or what was it? I guess they were
Another
patrolling.
locker dweller.
Yeah, yes, another locker dweller. Yes. They were patrolling the Foggy Bottom metro station here, and he tweets, "I didn't even know that I voted for this, but I did." And it's like you're in a cult. If you what you just said right now is a phrase that doesn't make
Cult.
sense.
you're in a like, and that again, it's kind of like a loser mentality. Like it's
Mm,
just whatever this person says, whatever this person does, they're the greatest. And I was like, a mark of kind of being, in my opinion, a somewhat intellectual individual is being able to say, hey, I've been presented with information that, maybe counters or conflicts the information that I had going into something. Now I'm gonna shift.
yeah.
Just saying over and over, like, this is fine, this is fine, this is fine. I was like, y'all, this doesn't look great from the outside looking in. But again, I've never been in a cult, so I don't know. And
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
judge. I was like, I maybe I'm more susceptible to propaganda than I would like to believe, but this has shown me to like Lauren, you got to make sure you're paying attention to all the facts because you do not want to look silly like these people.
No, yeah. And, talking about someone that, is one of these lapdogs, if you will, let's transition to, Greg Abbott and the decisions that he's taken in Texas and complying with Donald Trump. Talk to me about the situation, kind of a little bit of background for those who may not know, and then some of the more recent developments that have happened here in the past 24 hours. I guess since Monday at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, and I have to give full credit. Greg Abbott is one of those cartoon villains that I talk about and has plenty of terrible ideas on his own. But this time around, Donald Trump called him and said, "Look, I need 5 Republican congressional seats, and I need you to do it." And Greg Abbott said, "Okay, fine." And as you can see, this is where we are. And so right now, the legislature is currently in a special session. We meet every other year on a biennium for 40 days. So we just got done with a regular session, right? So if this was something that Greg Abbott had thought of, he had a whole session of time to say, hey, you know what, let's put redistricting on the calendar. Let's work on that. I don't think the redistricting committee met actually once during the regular session. So you know that this came directly from the president. And I think what makes it so egregious is one, that a sitting president can see into the future and say, you know what, I'm doing such a shitty job. We're going to lose in the midterms. And instead of trying to like do anything to mitigate that harm in a real way, he's just like, I'm going to call up a state that I know can give me those seats. The other side of it is just that our governor was so willing to comply. And not just willing to comply, but to do it in a way that was basically going to target and will target Black and brown communities. So it's not like enough to just try to silence voices, but you're going to be like, you know what else? You know who isn't suffering enough? Black and brown people in Texas. Let's make their lives harder. Let's steal representation from them. And so that it's not just a gerrymander, it's a racist gerrymander. And I think that's just what makes it so gross and disgusting. On top of that, we lost 130 plus Texans very recently in a natural disaster. And did Greg Abbott cause that storm? Absolutely not. But the Republican Party of Texas is responsible for the lack of response, the lack of follow up, and just really a poor handling of pretty much every natural disaster that has happened in the last decade or so. And I say that as a Houstonian, we're still recovering from Hurricane Harvey. And so I think when you just kind of add all of that up, it's just really gross. It's not just that, I'm a Democrat and I feel like I'm on the wrong side of this, we're not winning. It's not about that. It's just that, oh, this is just really bad. And it's not just bad for Democrats, it's bad for Texans. And it sets a very disgusting precedence. I'm glad that, Governor Newsom and some of the other Democratic governors are kind of saying, you know what, game on, because that bill did pass yesterday.
Mhm.
And it was the speed and the haste in which, they wanted this done so much so that they put that on the call before disaster relief. And so we
Yeah.
we broke quorum. We delayed this process for almost 2 weeks. And they did and the call on the House. So they did a call on the House and the civil warrant to bring us that back. The only bill that was mentioned on the call of the House was HB4, the redistricting bill. So they didn't even care to drag us back to Texas to do disaster recovery, flood recovery relief. No, they wanted us back to do redistricting. And then to make it even more gross, the governor was, going around doing his media circuit and saying, well, the Democrats are stopping, Texans from being made whole again. We're not doing disaster recovery, and it's just like, Abbott, you circumvent the legislature anytime you want to do something, from your border wall, even with wildfires, which he should have done. He could have helped he could have helped people in Central Texas that day if he wanted to. He just didn't, and so. we're living in some wild times, and I know we were kind of, joking earlier, but this is what happens when like the guardrails fall, right? This
Yeah.
is what 30 years of single party leadership gets you. This is what gerrymandering gets you, because I serve with a lot of people who really don't have to go home and run to convince their districts of anything. They have perfectly gerrymandered little districts. They go home, they tell their constituents, hey, they're trying to trans the baby. The Democrats are trying to trans the babies at night in their sleep, and they're doing furry musicals in class, and we got to stop the Democrats, right? And they get reelected and they come back, because that's what they. I'm telling you, that's what
Yeah.
they do.
No.
Instead of
Yeah.
being Instead of being able to go home and say, you know what, I really did this session, a bunch of tax breaks for Elon Musk and made a
Mm.
bunch of billionaires' lives easier, but they can't run on that. And so this is what we end up stuck with. And it's really, really unfair, because the average person, who isn't super dialed in, who isn't a policy wonk, doesn't see and hear all of the nonsense until it's something that, makes headlines. But on a daily basis, our state is being failed by the people that we have in charge.
Yeah, no, and I think the thing, going back to the fact that they didn't even try to make it seem like it was, from a rhetorical standpoint, like, oh, okay, the Democrats left and they left and they're abandoning their duties in terms of like giving aid back, or helping the communities
Nope.
that were affected by this natural disaster. They're just straight up like, no, actually, we want them back because we don't want to help people. We want to make people's situations worse. Same thing with like your mention of race and how this is a racial gerrymandering as well. A lot of people, they go with this criticism that like, oh, Democrats, they always make everything about race. No, this is mask off. The Republicans within Texas has said there are five, or I think they were talking about the districts in the RGV, and they were saying, these are Hispanic districts. We're gonna, no, essentially nullify them, and we're gonna make them Republican districts, because we know how
Mhm.
Hispanics vote. It was like very mask off in their approach to this whole situation, and it goes back to like the bad fascism thing, where it's like at least try to make it look like, if you're serving someone shit, at least put some whipped cream on it and a cherry on top. But they're not even doing that.
Mm. It's just, and like I said again, it's just hubris at this point. You know what I mean? When you haven't had to campaign, our governor has $70 million in a war chest. Who do you really answer to, right?
Mm.
Like, who are you afraid of? Who do you feel? And that's, I guess, what always my thing is when I talk, especially when I'm like going back and forth, because I'm not always nice on the house floor. I try to be a little bit better, but sometimes I'm just like, nah, y'all bullying, I'm a bully back. But I always tell them, I was like, my job is actually harder than yours as a state representative, as a Democrat, because I have to go home. I have to campaign on real things, and I have to go home and deliver results. Like, it's not good enough for me to come up here for 140 days and say, you know what I did? I made Republicans really sad and mad, and I yelled at them the whole
Yeah.
time. And my constituent was like, okay, yeah, cool, that's fine, but like, what about our schools? And not to say that their constituents don't care about real things, but again, they have basically picked their voters, and they go home and they scare the shit out of people about things that are not real and flights of fancy that have nothing to do with reality. And then their constituents who have been conditioned for so long regurgitate that stuff back to them. And they come back and say, well, I got to vote my district. No, you're manipulating your people and telling them things that are not true, because you can't tell them the truth about what you're really up here doing. And I think that's what's so frustrating, because I couldn't operate like that. Like, I could not just, as an elected official, operate in bad faith by misleading my constituents that way. But again, the stuff that you do in your district hurts the people in mine too.
Yeah.
Like, if this was just confined to you and your little neighborhood, and you know what, if they like it, I love it. That's one of those situations. If that's what they think is important, and they absolutely have the right to vote, for what they believe in. But at a point, that stuff hurts my people too. And so it's just like, I'm always kind of constantly reminding them, y'all don't have the mandate that you think you have. There are millions of Democrats in Texas. If we're gonna just talk just strictly party line stuff, there's millions of Democrats. You can look at every election, we've lost by a few points. So you don't want a reflection of the actual electorate. You want to steal power. And you know what? So be it. The Supreme Court said that you can do that. But even more egregious that you will do it on the backs of Black and Brown people, when in every other way you're trying to make people's lives harder. I mean, we have taken away, like I said, we have taken away in-state tuition for people with the Dream Act, right? Like dreamers.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that you have to add value to our society to matter, right? But these are kids who are American in every sense of the word, who have been here, who really don't know any other country but this one, who are going to school to better themselves and add value to our society. And we're just like, nah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Again, we're
Yeah.
talking about like America on the world stage and the type of country that we want to be seen as, but we're literally making it harder for people who want to be, valuable citizens of our society to do so. We're
Yeah.
talking about, oh, diversity, DEI is bad, diversity, equity, inclusion. You don't want to teach people real history because it makes you feel funny at night because maybe you have to reconcile with Pop was, going to a few more Klan rallies than he was telling y'all about. Those are conversations that are we have to have, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you're bad because you might be a descendant of a slave owner, and maybe you're not a descendant of a slave owner. But the conversation that we need to have about even not having that direct lineage, you were able to benefit from the way society was at that time is not a bad conversation to have, and it actually makes us better as a people when we can have those real conversations versus throwing those, trying to sweep those things under the rug. And it's just it's very frustrating that we're so willing to dumb our society down, not have real conversations, not have real truths, and set ourselves back so much because the truth is it's too hard to reconcile with.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I'm glad that you also brought up the point of like the Democrats in Texas. I was looking at this issue a lot, and this gerrymandering, it far extends beyond this circumstance. Like Texas is gerrymandered, and it has been gerrymandered for a very long time. Some of the data revealed that there's 8 million Democrats. Obviously, from what I understand, Texans aren't required to register with a party. So it's kind of hard to get some of this data. But the data that has been predicted shows that there's about 8 million Democrats in Texas compared to 6.5 million Republicans. And if I do my math there, that sounds like more Democrats than Republicans. So why is it that we always see Texas as like a red state, this deep red state?
And I've always said this, even as an organizer, Texas is not really a red state as much as it's just a not voting state for a number of reasons. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's just voter apathy," but I think that's not really a fair. It's not really a fair explanation when you think about just how hard Republicans in Texas work to suppress the vote. And so, if there is a level of apathy there, it's intentional
Mm,
because what you see is, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So like you think about when Obamacare was passed, right? Texas did not expand Medicaid. So people here didn't get to experience what it was like to have access to healthcare. So when you're so used to things just being how they are, and as a Democrat, you voted in every election over and over again, but you don't see any improvement, after a while, you might stop doing that thing. And there's not a person there to, do a whole explainer as to why, well, they made it harder to register to vote. They reduced polling locations, like all of these different factors that make it that much more of a burden to vote. You're going to see the decline that you see. And then again, too, you have to add in lifestyle. People they feel when we talk about the price of eggs, and I know a lot of people kind of dismiss that, but I heard that because again, I work with people who, just are not wealthy, right? I organize people who are in the trenches most of the time and are most impacted by the decisions that come out of Washington and Austin. And so there was some real frustration to that. I don't think the right fingers were pointing in the right direction, and we could have done a better job explaining it, but people were not wrong in how they felt. And so yeah, I absolutely agree that what you see play out is that, Republicans are in power, but it doesn't mean that because they're good at governing, it doesn't mean that we're a big red state. It means that our people are disenfranchised, our people are marginalized, and our people are suppressed so much so because Republicans know that their policies suck, right? They know. That's why they lean into culture war nonsense. That you don't have a winning message when you're spending millions of dollars on television ads during football games saying that boys are playing girl sports. Like, you don't have a winning message if that's what you're leaning into. But it's much easier to say that than get on and spend millions of dollars saying, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna fix capital gains taxes for like the richest people. Like, nobody would vote for that. And so, you see, it's a lot of different things that we have to combat. And again, too, running as a Democrat is a little bit more difficult because we have to have actual conversations about policy. It's not enough to just scare people on our side. Like, our people want to know, what are you going to do to make their lives better? We can't say the big boogeyman is down the street going to kill you, because we tried that, and
Yeah.
that's not enough, and it's not enough of a motivator.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And so I want to take that and I want to ask you about the situation and the Democrats' response in Texas. Obviously, you guys held out for 2 weeks and prevented the vote. What is the next step of this fight? So the vote went through. For those that may not be aware, the redistricting is going to
Mhm.
happen. I had heard that potentially this goes up the courts. Do you think that that's going to be a successful strategy? For an earlier question, was the idea, oh, sorry. Are we good now? Oh, one second.
Yes, hello. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Okay, yeah. So,
No worries.
for me, can you hear me?
Yes, 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 I can.
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what
No,
my
no
internet's
worries, no worries.
wonky. Yeah, so the next step in this process is absolutely going to be the legal fight in the court case. And as much as I feel how I feel about that process, it, one, needs to play out, but two, we've had some glimmers of hope with what happened recently with the Fifth Circuit, with Louisiana's maps, and even more recently with Mississippi. And if you know anything about the Fifth Circuit, they're pretty conservative. So to get a win there does, give me some peace, and maybe a little bit of hope that these maps, and to, make another point, every set of maps that Texas, I think, has ever presented have always been found to be in violation of the, I mean,
Yeah,
we are known for making some pretty, racist maps. And so this map is going to be no different. The maps that we have currently are under litigation for that very reason. And so, that was always going to be the thought, that if and when these maps hit the floor, because of just the composition of the legislature, 62 Democrats, 88 Republicans, they will pass. But what we wanted to do was, one, it just couldn't happen in one session, 30 days, right? Like, that was, we couldn't allow that to happen. Two, this had to be uplifted to a national conversation. And that was the other part of it. Like, we needed other Democratic governors and states that could do so to strongly consider it. Yeah, because we're going to be screwed in Texas when those maps happen. And we know that. And it's kind of one of those, we're going to lose the battle, but we have to win the war, because it's so much worse for us to lose those seats in Texas and then also lose Congress too, because that's a double hit for our people. We can rely and hope that the courts will justify this, and see our side, that these maps are racist, and then fix that problem. But we could not let both of those things happen. So I'm hoping, and I can't tell a governor to do what they, to do anything in their state, but I really hope that there's an appetite to kind of not give Trump what he wants, and that's a Republican majority in Congress that he hasn't earned, that he doesn't deserve, and that'll help him kind of shirk accountability. So we'll see. But I'm really proud of my caucus. It's hard to get 50 plus people to do anything. It's like herding cats, and we're all, 62 of the best, brightest, most cool, popular people ever with type A personalities. And so, it was a lot of work to get that done. And I hope that we can win some elections very soon, so that option is not always on the table. We need to flip 14 seats within this next decade or so, because I want to be able to govern. I don't always want to have to, be ringing the alarm and putting the fires out.
yeah, no, absolutely. And I keep saying this, if you want to look at what the Democratic Party should be doing in terms of picking up that fighting spirit, you got to look at the Democrats in Texas, because you guys have a set of
Yes.
fighters over there. And I want to thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us today. It really was a great conversation.